Along, and for arriving so early. Some people did. My name's and I work for an organisation called Gower Power that is involved in carrying out some research for Sustainable Wales. So Sustainable Wales is a local grassroots organisation that is involved, and correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret, is involved in grassroots action around green issues. Is that a fair description?
Green and ethical.
Green and ethical issues. So Sustainable Wales, with the help of Bridgend Reach, have commissioned a feasibility study, and that feasibility study is about exploring transport issues in Bridgend, in particular in the rural areas, and quite specifically around the new surgery on Newton Road. So with me today I've got John, who's actually works for an organisation called Down to Earth, who is based in Swansea. He's an electric vehicle driver, which will transpire why that's important as we go along. John, have you got a couple of health and safety?
Yep, the lights. So the feasibility study, it's basically a small, short piece of work. It's going to take place starting in February. I think it's meant to finish in May. It's a study of renewable energy transport solutions in Bridgend rural areas, specifically focused in certain wards that are serviced by the porthole surgery. In a nutshell, it's about exploring. We're aware that various social issues are created by people not having access to transport. People get isolated. We're aware that the knock-on effect, the economic effect of that. There's lots of negative consequences. And what the feasibility study is about exploring is the fact that there's an opportunity to make the most of an offer of free electricity, essentially, from Kennan Renewables. So they've said, look, we've got some electricity. We know there's some transport issues in Bridgend's rural areas. Can you use the electricity to solve some of these issues? So that's where myself from Gower Power and Juno Energy have come in. Gower Power is obviously based on Gower. We're a small community energy organisation that's involved in developing community energy projects. Juno Energy, who aren't here, they're doing the sort of technical analysis of what's possible. And essentially what we're looking at doing is saying, okay, we've got so much electricity that's available for free, can we use that to create a transport service, and what could that transport service look like? So what we've been doing is looking at different things. So the purpose of the study is to demonstrate feasibility of local community transport using locally produced renewable energy, and the idea being that by having this electricity and having a bit of goodwill behind us, we can mop up some of the issues that exist around transport in Bridgend with potential pilot. So what we've been tasked to do is look at the potential stakeholders in the area who we've been talking to, look at potential users and clients of the new transport service, look at other places where they might be using renewable energy to power transport, think about potential routes around areas, particularly around the surgery on Newton Road, new surgery, looking at accessibility, looking at the different technology available. So that's not just the vehicles, but what kind of booking systems are now on the market that could lend themselves well to running a pilot and facilitating a service. And looking at any regulatory issues and looking at opportunities for education. So within that, there's also like a financial viability assessment. And then at the end of the study, we make recommendations for the pilot. So that's kind of what the study's about. What I'm going to talk you through now is some of the factors that we've looked into so far. And then the idea is I'm just going to talk to you, generally speaking, about some of the things we've looked at. and then get your feedback on that, see if you've got any questions, and then also pick up on any issues that you have about the transport in the rural areas, and so we can feed that into the study. So we can say, well, we've spoken to so many people about this, and they've said so far. So the facts we looked at so far, we've spoken to a load of various different key stakeholders. I'll explain that more. We've started on the community consultation. That's been by virtue of a questionnaire, and we looked at routes, looked at scheduling, looked at potential vehicles, and we started looking at other factors. In terms of the key stakeholders we've identified, the Sustainable Wales Steering Group there kind of are linked to local people on the ground in many respects. So we've been working with the steering group, who are essentially contracting us to do the study, feeding back to them what we're finding. Kennan Renewables is obviously the renewable energy part. We've had a conversation with Graham, who's with us here at the Bridgend Community Transport Association, who's already running a community transport service in the Bridgend area. So with many respects, it makes sense to tap into that expertise and see how how this study could complement their services in any way. The Porthway surgery, so Nicola Willis is the surgery manager. So she has been consulting the doctors on our behalf, and also some of the patients, and steering them towards the consultation process. We've also spoken to the council, and we're also liaising with the voluntary Bridgend Association voluntary organisation. So our role has been very much sort of trying to find out who these people are, and start sort of looking at what something could look like and putting people together. In terms of the community consultation, we've sent out a questionnaire. So far we've had about 70 odd responses. There's an electronic questionnaire that's gone out via the stakeholders, gone out in other publicity. I think most of you have seen that. I'm not sure about some of you that your faces don't recognise, but do go to that questionnaire if you haven't seen it already. There's opportunity to feed in your inputs if you're a potential service user, i.e. you've got transport needs that aren't being met, or if you're caring directly for someone who's got transport needs, or if you represent an organisation that provides wider support services to potential users. So there's a consultation, that's tonight, and so that's the consultation process so far. So as part of our exploration as to what the issues are we're trying to solve, we want to start off with the focal point. I'll explain this. So basically you've got the Porthcawl area here. That's Kennan Renewables there. That's the new surgery. These green patches are the catchment areas for the old medical surgeries that closed down. And we got this from the planning documentation, and we were informed that these are the areas, the key areas that needed to be serviced by this surgery. So as a starting point for the study, we started exploring, well, okay, if there are people that can't get to that surgery, what would it look like? If there are our primary targets to serve these people who are having transport needs to get to the surgery, what would a potential service look like? And using some sort of electric vehicle. And we worked out that if you did a lap, it's about 40 miles doing a lap, and you could do a few of those in the morning. You'd take between 6 and 36 patients to and from the surgery, depending on how full the vehicle is. If you're assuming you're using a fairly small vehicle, and you could go around a few times in the morning, stop, recharge the battery, because that's obviously a factor of an EV vehicle at lunchtime, and then go and do it again in the afternoon. So that gave us a rough idea of what could be achieved with a small vehicle during the course of a week. So we were thinking you could probably do about 36 patient journeys with 1 or 2 charges. So that gave us a starting point, but of course there's times where the vehicle's not going to be used, where it's not going to be booked up, where potentially we could be servicing other needs as well. So that's where we're going with that, to try and find out some more about what people's needs are. So in terms of technologies, we've looked at various different small electric vehicles. The Nissan EV Combi comes on top. It's a 7-seater or 5-seater if you fit it with a wheelchair. It's a range of 100 odd miles. It seems to lend itself well to what we think is the need, which is that people would benefit more from more of a bespoke door-to-door service than a fixed route. So if you've got someone that needs to get from A to B, they're in a rural area, they would have potentially trouble getting to a bus stop. They would be far better off being served by something that came to their door, took them where they needed to go, and then took them back. So the small vehicles seem to make sense. The bigger vehicles, obviously, then it's not just a bigger expense, but then you're needing to fill the vehicle to justify the cost. So the small vehicles is looking like what it lent itself best to the pilot. In terms of booking, scheduling technologies, we've looked at a variety of things that are on the market at the moment. So there's one called Road Access that seems to lend itself best for a pilot because there's no upfront cost. So you can literally install the thing. It's all web-based, so people go online, they book their route, and the person running the route gets the message, and you can see whether there's availability or not. All the other ones charge up front, so it doesn't necessarily lend itself that well to a pilot scheme. So the point of the feasibility study is these different things will be written up in a bit more detail, and then that can inform some sort of funding application, a business plan that then can secure the funds to pay for or justify paying for a vehicle. And it's almost like a little plan. So other key factors we've looked at, again that's a bit blurry I'm afraid. We've looked at social isolation takes very different guises. There's also different people have got different reasons for being isolated socially. There's a need to define the service. If we're going to provide something in the area, it needs to actually differentiate from public provision. It needs to differentiate from the provision by taxis and actually define what it is it's doing. There's some regulatory issues that will be explained in the study that mainly affect over 16-seaters, which is another reason to go for the smaller vehicles. Mobility as a service, so this is this movement away from personalised transport towards transport being a service. It's got a lot of traction in government, it's got a lot of potential for funds in that. That will be explained. There's issues around driver recruitment, where, if you're going to put on the service, where do you get the drivers? So we've done a little bit of exploration around how drivers can be motivated and different ways of engaging them. There's obviously training that needs to take place, looking after vulnerable routes, safeguarding, basic first aid. The cars need inspecting. There's stuff that needs to happen around community engagement, so not just so that people know about the service, but also engaging those drivers. Pricing models, there's all sorts of different ways. There's potential expectation. People in the bus pass, might be expecting to get from A to B for free because they've got, they're on a bus pass. Other people, you might be prepared to pay a bit of money. There's various different pricing models. Could be zonal, it could be concessionary. Again, they'll be explored in more detail. And then there's stuff around rewarding the drivers. Okay, so we've got a little bit in the report about how how drivers could be. Typically in a volunteer scheme, a driver claims mileage and then they get 45p a mile. So with this sort of electric vehicle would belong to someone else. So you explore different ways of rewarding them. So we've also got to look at how we can dovetail with this existing provision. The final thing is that obviously the drivers could be paid, but it increases complexity. So that's a little overview of where the feasibility studies, the things, kind of things that the feasibility studies is exploring, and hopefully putting some details together on. So what I'd like to do now is sort of essentially find out from you, firstly, whether you've got any questions on the things that I've fed back to you so far, and then actually pick apart some of the issues that you're aware of that need to be addressed. And if anyone's got ideas for some of those issues, also I'd like to do a little bit thinking about specific places that are very hard to get to, apart from the surgery, and then to do some stuff around raising awareness about a service. So if you can do the lights, we shall. Dun, dun, dun. They do come on eventually. We've got to hold our breath and squeeze. Yeah. So it's time to have questions.